Hello, everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? So we're going to be doing something a little bit different this week. I had a stream ready almost to talk about the recruitment, um, methods and that kind of thing when it comes to the alt-right. And it's not quite ready, so I'm going to delay that by 1 week. But instead, we're going to do something a little bit different and a little bit more fun, I think. Um, this interview came out of Nick Fuentes, which I'm sure if you don't know who he is, he's the leader of a group called America First, which is basically a fascist organization, essentially, right? And yeah, it looks like it could be gold. So I did want to kind of, I think we're going to do something a little different here, and we're going to do a sort of commentary reaction video to this, interview of Nick Fuentes here, right? Um, but before we do that, let's take a look at where we're at with our artwork here. This is, of course, our Dueling Dragons that we've been working on for the last couple streams, and I think it's looking pretty good. You know, I think what we're going to be doing today is just adding more shadows and stuff like that, and then we'll start adding some highlights. As you can kind of see, that's what we were doing up here on the Red Dragon's neck last week. So we'll just be sort of working on that, as we comment on Nick Fuentes here. So now this is going to be on the show. The person that's interviewing him, the woman that's interviewing him, her name is Sydney Watson. And this is a show on The Blaze, which is Glenn Beck's network, right? So, of course, you all know who Glenn Beck was, a former Fox News host and contributor. Kind of went off on his own, started his own network, which basically took like a decade to get its legs under it, right? And was essentially failing until he got the backers of some, rich people, people like Sidney Allison and the Koch brothers and stuff like that who actually fund these things. Because if you didn't really know this, conservative media usually doesn't make very much in the way of money, like organically, until it gets really huge, right? Like when it first starts out, like usually, like, and that kind of goes to for the same as for all of these little pundits and things, people like, you know, uh, um, let's see, Candace Owens, for example, usually when they start out, they don't really have much in the way of an audience. They don't really make a lot of cash that way because they're sort of vile and people don't like them. And then also there's too many of them, right? And it's not until they get kind of big that they actually are capable of like making like, income on their own. Right. So until that actually happens, what ends up happening is that they end up getting basically funded by, people like the Koch brothers, for example, by billionaires, you know, that go out and want to spread their messaging. And this is how they do it. They'll find some pundit type person like Candace Owens or whatever and fund them behind the scenes until they basically get big enough to where they don't need them anymore. Right. And that's kind of what happened with the Blaze. Glenn Beck's Glenn Beck's network was just basically struggling for like, when did he launch this stuff? I think he launched it in like 2009, something like that. And for like a long time it was in the red, never actually made anything, and then it's just basically been propped up by like, libertarian right wing sort of anti-tax business types who are perfectly happy to ignore all of the racism and sexism and Islamophobia, stuff like that, as long as they're able to get their message, their pro-business, anti-tax message out. As long as they're able to do that, they're usually totally cool with like, all of the negative social shit that these people push. Right. So, that's who this person is, Sydney Watson. That's the Blaze. Sydney Watson herself is I don't really know much about her. Apparently, she's a little bit more of an anarchist, like, but right wing, sort of anarcho capitalist kind of person, you know? Not really like when you say, because anarchist can mean lots of different things, right? Usually in the United States, when someone says they're an anarchist, that's usually someone who comes from a left wing, at least as far as their politics go, their social politics, right? Basically, an anarchist in the United States is someone who doesn't trust the government but likes things like equal rights and like feminism and voting rights and things like that, But then they don't want the government to make these solutions. You know what I mean? Usually that's what someone in the United States when they describe themselves as an anarchist. Usually that's where they're coming from. But there is, of course, millions of different subgroups and subclassifications of what would be, what someone could call themselves as an anarchist. You know what I mean? And she kind of takes it from a right wing perspective. But if you look at, I didn't really know much about her, and I kind of looked at her Twitter feed, um, last night, and yeah, she's pretty fucking vile, man. So apparently she's a TERF. Can I open this? Okay. Here's her Twitter. Let's go ahead and let me see here. I have some windows here. Let's put that in there. And let's switch to my other view. There we go. This is her Twitter. Let's just make this bigger for now. Let's see, make that bigger. Right. Sydney Watson basically talking about some very vile anti-trans turfy kind of stuff here, people don't get periods, women do, right? People don't get pregnant, women do. People don't breastfeed, women do. So yeah, it's basically trans reactionary radical feminist kind of thing. But I don't even think you would call her a TERF because I don't think this person is actually even a feminist. You know what I mean? I think she's just anti-trans, right? Because usually when you say TERF, that means that when someone's a TERF, that means that they usually support women's rights in other like aspects. They'll usually support other things and like criticize the patriarchy and shit like that. I don't even think this person even does that. I think she's just one of those sort of stay at home kind of like, stay at home and raise kids and don't work and like all that shit kind of like conservative. But I don't really know, so I don't want to put words in her mouth, you know. But yeah, so kind of a turfy person here. Um, she of course also had let's see, let's check some of her other shit here. Let's go back to Sydney Watson. This is her Twitter feed, so you guys can see it. There's the turfy one. Um, let's see, she's promoting some other shit. She's some anti-vax stuff, retweeting some anti-vax like bullshit about mandates or whatever. Okay. Here we go. This is one. Race baiters gonna bait, right? About this tweet of a black woman who basically got a microaggression, right? Coming out as an anti-Black Lives Matter type person. The thing about that, when you say, when you're like, that, what she just said here in this, right? Where she says, race baiter, that's kind of a snarl word, a right wing snarl word, right? Basically, what it's supposed to mean, like if you look up race baiter in the dictionary, it's someone who uses unfair statements about race in order to influence actions or attitudes of a particular group of people. That's the exact like definition that I copied, right? I didn't just say that off the top of my head. I wrote that down. Anyway, so basically, a race baiter is someone who's a racist, like listen to that definition, unfair statements about race to influence, right? Someone who goes up and tells lies about race. That's what a race baiter is. So basically a racist, right? But people on the right tend to use that term race baiter as a kind of a snarl word. You know what I mean? And they use it they when they use it like that, they kind of interchange it with another term called race hustler. You'll hear that too a lot. and it's essentially just a way to try and criticize civil rights leaders. So you ever hear like Jesse Jackson or somebody like Al Sharpton or something referred to as a race hustler or a race baiter? You know, that's what they're trying to say. They're trying to basically trying to make these people sound like they're scam artists. That's what they're trying to do. They're basically saying that, hey, these are guys that use racial issues in order to make money. And they don't really care about people's race. They don't really care about civil rights. They don't really care about freedom or all that other shit like that. They just use it in order to get onto TV and try to, you know, make personally profit from it. That's the kind of attack that you get from the right wing when it comes to, and it'll be, all kinds of just anyone who talks about race on the news or on TV, Van Jones, Professor Cornel West, right? Like anybody, doesn't matter who the fuck it is. If you say anything that is in basically support of civil rights and critical of the white establishment, then you're suddenly a race baiter. You're a race hustler. So that's where this comment comes from here, right? It's kind of bullshit. And the thing about that is that's exactly what people like Sidney Watson do. People like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, right? That's their business model. Their business model is to get people angry so that they get views, you know, so that people buy their books, so that people go and watch their TV shows and go to their speaking engagements. And then, that way they can get eyeballs in front of advertisers. That's essentially, it's very hypocritical to, especially when someone's a pundit, a conservative pundit is saying shit like that. Someone like Ann Coulter, somebody like, you know, Paul Joseph Watson, for example, all of those different, Candace Owens, all of those different people out there that use, emotion in order to elicit rage in people and get those rage clicks. That's their entire fucking business model. So when they, the thing is, somebody like going off on a little bit of a tangent here, but somebody like Cornel West, for example, he doesn't have a TV show, you know, or the Reverend Jesse Jackson, he doesn't have a TV show. He's actually like a former senator, right? Like Van Jones actually was like, running for what was he, like the mayor of something, Chicago, I think, something like that. They actually put their money where their mouth is and engage in public service, for better or for worse, whether you like their policies or not, that doesn't change the fact that they actually like try to make a difference, right? There's lots of speculation that Tucker Carlson might try to run for president in 2 years, 4 years, or whatever. That's not going to happen. He's not going to run for president. And you know why he's not going to run for president? Because there's no money to be made there, right? Because Tucker Carlson doesn't actually give a shit about any of the things that he actually says. He's in it for the money. And so is Candace Owens, right? So is Sean Hannity. So is all of these other, like, Paul Joseph Watson and all of these other conservative pundit people that, basically conservative bullshit merchants, outrage merchants. They're in it for the money. And that's why these guys they'll never actually engage in any public, service like that. And they'll never run for office. They'll never run for mayor or governor or anything like that. And if they do that, it's mainly as an idea that they're going to drop out and in order to improve their brand. There was lots of speculation that that's what Donald Trump originally wanted to do when he ran for president, was just to get his brand out there, to get his name in the news and stuff like that, and then like he was going to drop out after the Georgia primary or something. But then he started winning, and then his ego got a hold of him, and the rest is unfortunately history, right? So yeah, that's kind of I don't know. It just I kind of went off on a big thing there because this was supposed to be about Nick Fuentes. We'll get to him, but I wanted to comment on that because it pisses me off when you hear stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like when I hear right wingers saying shit like this, it really pisses me off because it's extremely hypocritical. You know what I mean? And that's one thing that I don't know, like one universal sort of trait that right wingers of all, people on the right of all stripes seem to share is the fact that they're all just giant fucking hypocrites. So, anyway, but yeah, were there some other tweets here? I don't know. She talked about stuff like that. There were a couple of even racist ones, like that one, pretty fucking racist. Um, Lots of bullshit. Of course, she had Kyle Rittenhouse on her fucking show or whatever too, you know. But anyway, let's go ahead and just make that a little bit smaller and let's get rid of this. And we should actually start watching the video here, right? Thanks guys for joining, by the way. South Florida Groiper. Hey, what's going on, man? I will. Thank you. Yeah, you're a new name here. We will be. I usually read the comments at the end of the stream, so I will read your comment. But thanks for joining, man. Really appreciate that. Cody Course, how's it going, man? Lewis a Hedgehog, good to see you. Justin KG, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate that. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started with this. So. I don't know who this dude is, but he's one of the co-hosts, I guess. Let me just make sure that I can like hear everything and stuff like that. Okay, here we go.
Do you want to get married?
Yeah, I want to get married, but more out of necessity of like producing a male heir is really the whole point.
No, I'm just
Okay. 9 seconds. I have to comment. 9 fucking seconds. Producing a male heir. That's some fun. It's like, what are you, like a fucking emperor? Like producing a male heir. Now, okay, that's fine. I understand people want to get married. They want to have children when they get married. It's just the way that he framed that was like, yeah, talk about fucking cringy. Like, I don't know. We are kind of going into this, by the way, mostly blind. I've seen a few clips on this, so I kind of know a little bit of what's coming, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I don't think we're gonna watch this entire video because, I mean, usually my live streams are about 2 hours, so I guess we could watch the whole thing. I don't know. Hopefully, I won't get any copyright strikes or whatever. But here we go. Yeah, that was cringy. A male heir, like, what are you fucking Napoleon? All right.
I'm just listening. I'm just observing. You can keep going. Continue.
She's like, we can keep going.
No, because I mean, I would prefer to get a handle on what you think from your mouth.
That's very Chinese of him, though.
So that's Sidney
You know,
Watson,
just
by the
only
way.
men. So he doesn't want any female children. It's very Chinese.
Yeah, no, I think they're awake on this question. You know, I mean, as far as like marriage
well, it's more
goes,
about population control.
Okay. They're awake on this question. So I guess he's talking about in China how, if you guys aren't aware, families in China go through a lot of trouble to have sons, right? It's almost like a cultural sort of status kind of symbol thing to have a son and then pass your your household onto them. You know what I mean? It's basically, yeah, kind of like that. It's sort of like a leftover cultural, you know, I don't know, accruitment, I guess you would say, right? And what ends up happening is that girls get aborted, right? In China, there's kind of a big problem with that. So over the last, 20, 30 years, that's been a thing. And then what's going on now is that a lot of the young men in China, there's not enough women, you know, in their communities in order to get married. Because that's the other thing. It's like you're supposed to, have a son, and then your son gets married, and then your son has more sons, and blah 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 blah. And that's, kind of how you pass on your family lineage, sort of patriarchy style. Now, there's not enough women in China, and a lot of young guys are kind of going without getting married, basically involuntarily celibate people in China. Right? So let's continue on with that. So that's what they're talking about. But according to Nick Fuentes there, he just said that was a good thing. Did he just say that was a good thing? I think he did. So, all right, let's go on.
Control there rather than getting
Well,
rid
and
of
it's
women.
it's like the old world stuff about like a dowry and like, gendered stuff and all that. But, at least for me, it's sort of like a pride thing. Like I want to produce a male heir to take on my name, take on my legacy and all that. And marriage is sort of pursuant to that goal. But, I don't know.
Sorry, this is just the funniest. Oh my God, like look how fucking full of himself this guy is. First off, like you know, oh my God, like he think that he's like an emperor or something? Like, first off, what the fuck is this dude's legacy? Okay, what? America first? That's his fucking legacy. So it's not like he's like a gigantic like real estate tycoon or some shit that has like billions of dollars. I don't know. Maybe he does. Maybe he does. Is Nick Fuentes like is he like super rich? I mean, I'm sure he's probably scamming plenty of fucking money off of his followers there. Like I'm pretty sure this guy doesn't like actually have a real job and probably just lives off of donations and shit like that. Because what has he done? Has he written any books? Not really. He makes what, like videos and shit? He has like a podcast or something? Probably. That's probably what he does. He probably has. I mean, I don't even really know. Does he just go and make media appearances and just like formulate rallies and shit? And then like what? You know, like how does he make money? I mean, that's probably it. I don't know. I'll have to look into how he gets funded, you know, because if he doesn't have like membership fees or donations or Patreons or something, pretty sure they kicked him out of all of that shit. You know what I mean? Like pretty sure he's been deplatformed. I think he did have a YouTube channel and that was like mainly how he got started. But yeah, it's not like Nick Fuentes like owns like a fucking corporation. Like it's not like he's like, building electric cars or making rockets to the moon or, anything like that. So what the fuck kind of like what legacy, like what the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like you have to actually accomplish something first before you can have a legacy, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Like if I had a kid, what would my legacy be? What, my action figure collection? Like, I haven't really accomplished anything huge enough in this lifetime in order to have a male heir. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's just arrogant. That's what it is. It's like really arrogant and stupid. I don't know. Moving on. We're only like 53 seconds in. Sorry, I'll stop pausing so much.
Know about this whole prospect of like living with a woman for the rest of my life. Like, it sounds good at first. It sounds like kind of fun or interesting. You don't have to do laundry. You don't have to worry about kind of taking care of the house. But,
What? What?
then
What? Wait. Wait. Hang on. Rewinding that. What did you just say? Laundry?
about this whole prospect of like living with a woman for the rest of my life. Like, it sounds good at first. It sounds like kind of
Okay.
fun or interesting. You don't have to do laundry. You don't have to worry about kind of taking care of the house. But, then the prospect of just like it goes.
Wow. Holy fuck. So I guess that's what he thinks a wife is? Like, I got some news for you, Nick. That's not what a marriage is. Your wife is not a maid. That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me because a lot of incels and stuff kind of like a lot of like men's rights people and like incels and just I mean I would assume just normal ordinary conservatives think that way. That things like cooking and cleaning and like, taking care of the kids and shit like that, that's all women's work. You know what I mean? And like a man has to go and earn the bacon and like, work all day and sweat in the fields and all that shit. And a woman comes home and she brings your slippers and makes you a drink and then, gets on her knees and fillets you in command or some shit like that. Like, is that, but, anyone who's actually like been married knows that that's not what it's like. It's if you're going into that expecting your wife to fucking like pamper you and shit, like I see some divorce in your future there, Nick. Like, seriously, if you ever actually end up getting married, I don't know. If there's anybody out there any of you people out there who have trouble, because the thing about the word incel is that it's involuntarily celibate, is what they say, right? They're not choosing to not be in a relationship. They're not choosing to be, they want to have relationships. And if any of you out there, if you're having trouble finding women to, to love you and stuff like that, if you have an attitude like Nick Fuentes, that's the reason why. Okay, let me just give some friendly advice. No woman is gonna like hook up with you if your expectation is that she's gonna stay home and fucking cook and clean, right? And mop the floor all day and like, you know, and like cater to your every fucking women desire as you sit around and play video games all day. That shit's just never gonna fucking happen. Okay. I mean, even in I see a comment here. He was raised in a traditional household. Even in a traditional household, what do you mean by traditional? The woman stays home and does all this shit? Like, so what, the man never vacuums a floor ever in his entire fucking life? Like, the man never cooks ever in his whole fucking life? Like, and that was one thing, like, I remember years ago, I made a video by a guy named, it was a video response to a dude named Schmarkitect. That was his name, right? I've still got it up on my channel back when I used to wear the sunglasses and shit. And he was one of those anti-marriage MRM kind of people, basically saying like his whole thing was that, oh, it doesn't benefit the man. And one thing that he kept bringing up over and over is that all a woman has to do is cook and clean and, basically have sex with you. And that's all she's got to do. And the man will do everything else. And I'm thinking about that. It's like, number one, what kind of empty ass fucking relationship is that? Right, where like if all your partner does, assuming that you're cis, a cis male or whatever, right? And you're married to a cis female, right? And like, what kind of empty ass fucking relationship is that? Is where all she does is cook and clean, and that's it, and all you do is work. And then when you come home, what the fuck do you talk about? Number one, right? Like, how do you know what ends up happening? You quickly run out of shit to like that's in common that you have in common, and like your marriage ends up becoming boring as fuck if you don't actually divorce each other because you're not interacting. You're just you're not sharing aspects of your life. Like, basically, she's a fucking know what that is? That's your mom. That's what that is. That's what Nick Fuentes is describing. He's describing his mother, and he wants his mother, except he wants to be able to like, he wants a stand-in for his mother that will also like give him oral sex. That's what he wants. You know what I mean? He wants like a mother that he can have sex with, and it's like that's extremely immature. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck is that? Like, I don't know. And then that makes me think like, wow, if I were to go over to Nick Quintes's like apartment right now, would there just be like socks and underwear and shit all over the place? like because he doesn't like do his own laundry and he doesn't cook and clean. So what does this guy like just fucking eat out at like Taco Bell and shit every single night and like doesn't do any laundry and like is it all like dirty? Like I bet his fucking like toilet is just all fucked up. Like all like gross and disgusting and like never cleaned a fucking toilet in his entire life. Like it wouldn't doubt me. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it at all. So anyway, okay. Sorry, let's move on.
Goes on and on and on, and it's decade after decade after decade, and
All right, let's rewind that
I
just
don't
a
know how thrilled,
little bit.
then the prospect of just like it goes on and on and on, and it's decade after decade after decade, and I don't know how thrilled I am with that whole idea. I'm kind of a solitary individual. I like my privacy. I like my autonomy, and just the idea of like nagging GF, nagging wife. It's a little nightmarish to
Do you have
me.
a good
You know what that is? You know what he just said right there? He's basically saying that he wants to have sex with other women if the option arises. That's what he's saying. Oh, it's decade after decade. Yeah, that's usually what monogamy is. When you're in a monogamous marriage, that means that, yes, it goes on for the rest of your life, and you're with the same person for the rest of your life. And if you don't like that idea, then you shouldn't get married. And here's the thing about that, right? I am perfectly 100% in support of people who don't want to get married. 100%. If you don't want to do it, don't do it, right? If you don't like the idea that you will be spending the rest of your life with someone, the same person for the rest of your life, if that notion scares you, then you should not get married because if you do, it's not going to last, right? It's something that you have to want. If you don't want it, if you don't want that lifestyle, right, then don't do it. And there's nobody out there pointing a gun to your head saying, "Hey, you have to get married." No, don't get married, you know. That's one thing that all the MRM people and the men's rights and all that other shit, that's the one thing that they don't understand because they always try to say, "Oh, people get pissed off because we don't get married, they don't like it." It's like, "No, no one gives a shit if you don't want to get married. Then just don't fucking do it." That doesn't mean that you should, that doesn't mean that all the bullshit you say about it is true, right? Or that it's bad or that other people can't, don't enjoy it, right? Let me tell you the reason why it's good to get married is stability. That's why, right? Because believe it or not, as you get older, right, for all you youngins out there, right, for all of you, Zoomers and shit like that who are like young and shit, the reason why it's good to get married is stability, right? And at one point in your life, you will want to settle down and you'll decide, hey, I'm through with all the fucking ridiculous relationships, family stuff like that, right? And it's tiring to go out to nightclubs and shit every fucking night and try to like, and just socializing in general becomes a pain in the ass. And it's like you want to do it on your own terms. You want to be like, you know, that kind of thing, right? And here's the other thing: the older you get, the more you don't identify with the younger generation, right? The music that people in their 20s and shit listen to today, I have no fucking clue. I can't identify with it at all. I am like old now. Like you remember that Simpsons where like Grandpa Simpson says to Homer like, I used to be with it, and then they changed what it is. Now everything is weird and scary. You remember that Simpsons? That shit's true, you know. And it's kind of like, the older you get, you kind of just realize like, fucking, I don't have time. I don't have the time or the inclination to be going out trying to hit on. And then another thing that you notice also is that people who are unmarried in their like 30s and 40s and 50s and shit are usually kind of fucked up, right? And you start thinking like, why is that? And it's because like all of the good people got married already, right? Which is not to say if you're single then you're like a more, then you're crazy or something. But I mean, this is just an observation, a personal observation. I'm not trying to say that if you're not married and you're like 45 or whatever, that you're like, a shitty person. But I am saying it's like, oh, well, maybe there might be a reason. Like, oh, this one, she's, why is that, right? So something that you just kind of start noticing there. It's like, oh, okay, like, but you'd start desiring that sort of, you want to settle down. You want to like, start thinking about things like kids, right? Like, when I was in my 20s, I would, the idea of having children was horrifying to me. It was like, oh my God, fuck that, never. And now, yeah, not so bad. I mean, if I were to have maybe one, maybe two, I think I'd be kind of cool with it, you know, because you get older. You get older, things change, you make more money, you get a little, you have a little bit invested in society a little bit, and you start thinking about things like, future family type stuff, right? Not because you want to pass on your fucking like empire to your male heir or whatever the fuck that is. I don't know. That just seems to me to be a very immature way of looking at it. It's like the fuck that who does this fucking guy think he is? Anyway, okay, moving on. All right.
Relationship with your mum?
I love my mom. Yeah, I love my mom.
Is your mum a stay-at-home mum? What does she do?
Yeah, well,
Oh yeah, and look at this the look on Sydney Watson's face here when he was saying all that shit. By the way, she's just staring at him like, oh my God, how did I think she just must be sitting here thinking like, what am I doing with my life when I'm interviewing this fucking like piece of like human feces here. Okay, sorry, moving on.
So she works now, but when me and my sister were growing up, she raised me. She quit her job to stay at home and raise us
And what's your
full
sister
time.
like? Do you get on with her?
Yeah, she's my twin. She's probably the opposite of me. She's more calm, sort of introverted. Yeah, but we get along.
Do you respect women,
Of course.
but you just don't want them to have any rights?
Well, I didn't say that. I didn't
Okay.
say they shouldn't have rights.
But
Okay. She's looking a little confused. Um, I do kind of know where this is going, so yeah, let's continue.
if I'm understanding your question correctly, if you don't want them to vote or drive or have an existence akin to what they would have in, say, Saudi Arabia, you would say that in large part, then they don't really have rights.
Well, I would say probably the ideal is something more like Afghanistan, if I'm being totally honest. Like
And
recent,
so what's the difference
recent
between
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan then and Saudi Arabia?
Like the brutality, I guess, is like a little, slightly more brutal. Of course,
Wow. So you heard it there, folks. This is the man's own words. You know, he would like the way we treat women in the United States to be similar to how they are treated in Afghanistan. So, women in Afghanistan, of course, under the Taliban, cannot vote. They cannot really own property, really. They can't really go to school. They're starting to take that away. I don't know if you've been paying attention since the Taliban took over again. Women are not allowed to basically go to school. They're not allowed to drive cars. Right. There was some women who tried to protest that, and they basically got fucking beaten and arrested. I couldn't actually like. There was like yeah, some like university students who were like female university students who wanted to basically continue to go to school and get their educations and actually like eventually go on and have careers and shit. And the Taliban put the kibosh on that. That's not happening anymore. Um, you basically also, as a woman in, traditional sort of Sharia law type civilizations like that, type countries, societies, you really don't have a choice about who you're going to get married to. Usually not. Usually that's an arranged kind of thing where it may be decided years and years and years before it actually happens, like by your parents. Your parents may decide for you who you're going to get married, and you don't really have a choice. And once that happens, you can't really leave. There are very few options in order for, divorce and stuff like that. And not to say that it doesn't happen, because you can divorce someone under Sharia law, but usually when that happens, the woman has absolutely fucking nothing, like zero, nothing. And then you get shit like honor shamings and honor killings, you know, that kind of thing. You get stuff like these sort of like acid attack type stuff, where like a guy will, um, basically fucking throw acid in a woman's face because she rejects him, shit like that. Or her family will, shit, I screwed that up. Let's undo that. Undo. There we go. Um, or like her family will kill her because supposedly she cheated on her husband or something like that. So yeah, it's pretty fucking horrible. And this is kind of what Nick Fuentes wants in the United States. You know, I remember Lauren Southern. You know Lauren Southern is. She was the white genocide girl. Made a bunch of videos about white genocide. I remember a few years back when she said she was leaving the alt-right scene. And the reason that she said she was leaving was because of misogyny. Because people kept sending her threatening emails and stuff. And it was like her supporters, basically telling her to shut up and get married and have kids and all that stuff. And that pissed her off, and that was the main reason why she kind of left public life for a few years. Lauren Southern has kind of come back and is trying to remake herself, but you know, fuck her. So it's a different, that's time for a different stream. But anyway, the main reason was it's like, oh well, because she's not being treated, you know, um, she's not being treated equally from the alt right people from her supporters. And it's like, I don't know why people are surprised at that. That someone who basically judges people based on how they look on the color of their skin and, uses things like easily disproven stereotypes and stuff like that in order to make judgments. Like, I don't think why somebody would be surprised why that person would also not be a raging fucking misogynist, like, you know, incel kind of woman hater type person. Like, it makes perfect fucking sense. It's like, why did you think that, oh, he's gonna hate black people and hate Jewish people and all that stuff, but he's gonna be perfectly cool with women? You know what I mean? I don't know. This maybe that's the reason why so many like incel type guys seem to fall into these alt-right fucking rabbit holes. Um maybe they're just sort of like, the reason why they're not able to get any girlfriends is because they're just shitty people who believe in shitty things. And if they weren't such fucking like assholes, maybe a woman might want to fuck them once in a while. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass here. Maybe this is my dirty mudblood genes talking, and I'm being manipulated by like the Jewish elites or something into destroying the white race. I don't know about that. Anyway, let's move on here.
Taliban rule, not American rule. I'm talking about recent
So
Afghanistan.
you want women to have the same treatment as women have under Taliban rule in Afghanistan?
Something approximating that, yeah,
Okay.
because you
I like
think
how
about the
he didn't even deny
Taliban
it.
and what they're able
like,
to
dude.
achieve. Here you have these guys with nothing but some light arms and rags and 20 years, and they were able to defeat the largest military in history. Think that has something to do with the fact that they weren't like distracted.
No, that has nothing to do with the fact that they weren't distracted. Like, so this is actually the clip I saw. This is the clip here. I saw it on Sam Cedar's show, and that made me want to do this sort of commentary. That is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life, right there. So he just basically said, "Hey, the Taliban were able to defeat the United States Army because they don't have nagging women at home." You know, uh, which is the stupidest fucking take that you could possibly have. Like the real reason why the United States like wasn't able to affect regime change in Afghanistan is far and varied, has lots to do with all kinds of things, like mainly the fact that the people there didn't want it to happen in the first place and were just sort of keeping the war going as part of a money-making enterprise, you know, in order to keep us there just long enough in order to prop up the Afghan government and all that stuff. And that's why the shit collapsed like overnight, because there really wasn't 300,000 troops or whatever Joe Biden said. All of that stuff was kind of bullshit to begin with because it was all just a big fucking scam. But, you know, one thing we can say for certain is that it had nothing to do with like, you know, the Taliban's fighters not having a nagging wife at home, because that's the dumbest fucking thing like ever. And it just kind of makes you think like there's this big narrative on the right wing about you know the feminizing of the American male, right? Which is funny because this actually comes from a fucking George Carlin skit. That's the first person that came up with this. There's a George Carlin skit from like 1990 fucking 6, I think, where he talks about the pussification of the American male, right? And it was a big joke, and it was all about like guys not being tough, and I think George Carlin's take on it was like people who had like fucking wimpy names, I think is what it was. But it was a joke. It was a comedy routine, and this comedy routine has kind of wormed its way into right wing like philosophy. So much to where like, 30 years later, this little wormy moron is like using it as a reason as to why the United States was not able to you know, effectively, cause regime change in Afghanistan, which is it's the dumbest fucking thing. Did you know this guy's only like 23? I didn't know that. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because the shit that he says is really like kind of sounds like something a fucking teenager would come up with. You know what I mean? Like it's really like immature. All the shit that he's saying about marriage and stuff like that. It's really immature. It's really sort of like you can tell that he's not very much experienced in the way of just everything and doesn't really know how the world actually works or anything like that. Because if he did, he wouldn't be saying this stupid bullshit. Anyway, let's move on.
They weren't distracted with the kinds of things we are in America. They weren't being nagged. They weren't being bossed around by women. And, now they've got this society where there's this brutality, like I said, this old world sort of order. And you bring up like voting. I don't see really voting as a right, if I'm being totally honest.
He doesn't see voting as a right. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me either. You know. Um, hey, Raf, thanks for joining, man. Appreciate that. How's it going? Another person, what was that? Thank you for joining too. Anyway, doesn't see voting as a right. That doesn't surprise me, you know. Um, I think that's kind of what a lot of conservatives think about voting. They don't actually see voting as a right either. They kind of see it as a obstacle to be overcome in their search for power, right? And it's no coincidence that when more people vote, conservatives tend to lose elections, right? And they've kind of known that for quite a while now, the conservatives, and they've been trying pretty much for decades to, consolidate power. And one way that they consolidate power is through limiting the right to vote. And we're seeing that all over the country now, especially since Donald Trump lost the election last time. There are very, very huge pushes in red states in order to basically consolidate power. A story that came out just I think yesterday was one about the local election boards in Georgia have been kind of seized by the GOP, right? So Georgia this time around went blue, and there were two special elections. So not only did they put basically were very much responsible for putting Joe Biden in the White House, but they also had two special elections where they elected, Democratic senators, right? That was a big sort of like wake up call to the GOP that, because Georgia is not really a battleground state, really. It's mainly conservative, it's mainly a red state. And that Georgia actually turned blue for the first time in like 20 years or something is kind of a big, the alarm bells started ringing, right? So the thing is, the way that the GOP and conservatives and Republicans and stuff, they don't, when they realize, hey, we're losing elections, instead of going out and changing their messaging, trying to get people to appeal to them and stuff like that, instead of doing any of that, the way they win elections is by voter suppression, right? So there's a story that came out just yesterday about how the local boards of elections in Georgia have been they've used this law that they passed. They passed a law that allows basically you know allows them to essentially overturn elections. Right, the local election boards can essentially overturn elections, and now what they're doing is they're going through and they're sort of taking over these local election boards, right? So your local election board will do things like they're the ones that will put up polling stations. They're the ones that order voting machines and stuff like that, the ones that actually send out ballots, that kind of thing. And although they're not actually responsible for counting the ballots, that can make a big difference. So what's going to happen, right? And it just so happens that all of the boards that they're taking over happen to be in Democratic districts. You know, no surprise there, right? So they're kicking off all the Democrats from these local election boards, and then when the next election comes, what's going to happen? There's going to be one polling place for the entire fucking like district. You know what I mean? Imagine you're in a town You know, and even a smaller town. Let's say you're in a town and your town has 20,000 people in it or something like that, and there's two polling places in the whole town, and it just so happens that your town is in a blue district. That's what's going to happen, right? That's what happened when Stacey Abrams lost. You know, because fucking the governor, what's his name, Brian Kemp, you know, was the fucking guy responsible for facilitating the election, you know, and was somehow allowed to like act in that capacity in the election that he was running for governor for. Like, I don't know how that shit happened. You know, suddenly people like, you know, 50,000 Democrats get kicked off of the election, you know, rolls, stuff like that, and you know, polling places get shut down in Democratic districts and all that stuff, and then lo and behold, Stacey fucking Abrams loses. Right? That's what's going to happen in Georgia. It's like basically Georgia, there's no democracy now. Like these boards have the ability to essentially just overturn, you know, if the election doesn't go the way they want, they can just overturn it. So that's kind of par for the course for the GOP, and it's like Fuentes here is just kind of just mask off about it. You know what I mean? Because your average like politician or something, you know, GP politician, like they have to at least hide it in the language of we're doing this to help people. Oh, we want to, you know, we want clean and fair elections, blah, 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 right? They at least have to try to bullshit people into thinking they're doing the right thing. But Fuentes is just like, yeah, fuck it. People shouldn't be allowed to vote. And, you know, why is this guy on the Blaze? Why did this person, you know, Sydney here, why did she even have him on her show? It's because this is the next generation of conservatives. The next generation of conservatives are people like Nick Fuentes, the alt-right people. You know, those fucking morons on 4chan and on Reddit and shit posting the dumbass frog memes, right? You know, posting the memes of Donald Trump as the fucking God Emperor from Warhammer and shit like that. That's the next generation, and they need these people to survive. You know, they need them in order to, you know, make money because the older conservatives are all dying off from fucking COVID. That's what's actually happening. So, anyway, moving on here.
Be honest, like it's not just women. There's a lot of people that really shouldn't be voting anymore.
Such as.
You know, maybe people that don't own property, young people, people that
Jesus
work like
Christ.
retail jobs. Like as an example, really, well,
No,
hear me
that's
out.
just
Hear me out.
funny. People that work retail jobs.
Well,
Okay,
or
we
like
can, I think we
service
can all get
jobs.
on board with that national
Jesus
movement.
Christ.
It's like,
Oh my
with the
God.
service that you're getting, it's like, man, you couldn't even get my change right. I don't know if you're going to be able to pick the
No,
correct
there was
president
a. I
of
was
the
in.
United
I was
States.
in Lowe's.
Wow, oh my God. I didn't know that was coming. That's so he doesn't think that people who work in retail should be allowed to vote? Just mask off about it. I'm kind of like speechless here, man. Like, Jesus Christ. I just went through this big ass long speech about voting rights, and then fucking he just said something that just made it like 10 times worse. Why is this not blending? What the fuck? Oh, I think we need to let this catch up for a minute. Let's just save real quick. The, so he only wants rich people to vote. He only wants landowners to vote. That blows me away. Because first off, like, so then his little friend there just basically said, "Oh, people are too stupid to vote. Okay, if you can't give me my change right, then you shouldn't be making decisions for the." Oh my God! All right, let's move on. Okay.
Earlier, and a young man helped me who's actually a fan of both of us, who was super lovely, and I would like him to vote. He was great. He was very clever.
Well, you know, the thing about retail or these service jobs is like, you know, you look at these young people, it's a lot of millennials, Generation Z, and they really don't know how things work. You know what I mean? Like if you own a business, if you own property, even if you're a homeowner, you kind of have an idea of like how things work, you know, like where things come from and some idea of like how the economy works.
Okay.
And, you know, if your whole life is like, okay, you're in school, you're a student, you pay rent, you know what I mean? Like you don't even manage like how your apartment runs. Like how should you have a say in how the country is run? You don't even really know how anything comes together in society. So, you know, the old way in America was that It was, of course, propertied
Jesus
white
Christ.
men. It was a very narrow group of people that were able to vote, and that's because the founding fathers didn't really believe in mass democracy, universal suffrage. They believed in checks and balances, and kind of voting was a part of like checking the power of the ruling class or the regime with the power of the people. But they weren't under any illusions about this idea that like every person should have a vote.
Wow. Unfucking believable. I can't fucking believe that anybody would. Why would anybody follow what that guy just said? Did you just hear what he said there? So if you don't, if you, first off, if you work retail, right, then you're too stupid to vote, according to Nick Fuentes, right? That's every fucking person in his, like, organization. Every fucking person that follows America First is like what he just described. Someone who's like, because his audience are, he just said millennials. His audience is full of millennials, right? It's not like people who are like, 50 years old with a career and a 401k and two cars and a house and like a fucking retirement plan. Like it's not like those people are listening to Nick fucking Fuentes. It's like, no, man. His group is called the Groiper Army, for crying out loud. Their like symbol is like Pepe the fucking Frog that they actually stole from, the cartoonist guy. What was it? Our boys or whatever the fuck it's called. Which I don't know why this dude isn't suing the fuck out of Nick Fuentes, right? Like seriously, like that's what. So basically, if Nick Fuentes had his way, everybody that gives him money, right? Everybody that is part of his organization that he makes his living from would not be able to vote. They wouldn't have a choice to be able to vote. Do people understand this? I know that eventually somebody out there who's a supporter of this guy is going to come across this stream and probably report it and shit like that, right? Do people understand that's what this guy wants? He wants you to not be able to actually like have a choice, have some input when it comes to your country. This is what Nick Fuentes wants. Nick Fuentes wants the elite, you know, the moneyed elite to make all of the decisions for you, right? Because I can guarantee you, if we actually did that, then the definition of who actually is a land a property owner would be further defined so that even normal ordinary homeowners like he's describing, middle class homeowner, middle class business owners, they wouldn't get the right to vote either. It's like, no, you would have to have X amount of, you know, property value would have to be X amount in order to do that. And it would just be just enough so that like everybody who's a Democrat wouldn't be able to vote, right? Basically everybody who's like not like a fucking super rich person wouldn't get to vote. And you know what would happen? Right? We would live in a dystopian right-wing hellhole where like there would be no social safety net whatsoever, right? There would be like, you'd be no minimum wage. People would be working for fucking like 3 cents an hour, stuff like that. Corporations would be ripping you off left and right. You wouldn't have a choice about anything. Cops wouldn't come when you call them unless you had money. This is what would fucking happen if Nick Fuentes ran everything. And I guess he'd be perfectly fucking happy with it as long as it was like, white people who are at the top. He would be perfectly fucking happy with it. It's absolutely disgusting. I can't fucking believe that. I mean, that right there, what he just described, that's like Jim Crow sort of, can't vote if you're not a property owner, right? The thing is, yeah, okay, that he is correct, or that is what the founding fathers originally envisioned voting, right? They did say that. Yeah, you did have to own property. You couldn't be a woman and vote. You couldn't be black and vote, stuff like that. That was wrong. Number one. Number two, it was 200 years ago. Number three, it's our country now. The country doesn't belong to the founding fathers because the founding fathers are dead, right? We're the ones that live here now. So it's I don't know. That's just like the dumbest fucking shit ever. That kind of makes me think that, you know, fucking this guy Fuentes is like a spoiled rich kid. You know what I mean? That's what makes me think that he grew up a spoiled rich kid who like had a silver spoon in his mouth and never like had to work for anything in his entire life. He probably never had one of those minimum wage jobs that he hates so much. Oh, thank you, honey. Hey, my wife brought me a drink. I love you so much. You know, he probably never had one of these minimum wage jobs that he's complaining about, right? He's probably never worked with any of the people that work at these places, you know. He probably has no real idea about what working people go through, and that just kind of tells me that he has real no idea about how the world actually works, you know. I mean, why don't we just go back to having, I don't know, literacy tests when you go to vote? Why don't we do that? I guarantee you Nick Fuentes couldn't pass the fucking literacy test, right? Have you ever seen those literacy tests? There's a you know image of one of those online of those literacy tests that they would pass like to try to stop black people from voting in the South. They're insane. They're basically like it's just one trick question after another designed so that they can always just flunk you is what it is, right? He wants to go back to that shit. I mean, that's the most anti-American, fascist, fucking ridiculous horseshit ever. You know, I don't understand how anybody can listen to this shit and like agree. Like, oh my god, like be intellectually fucking honest with yourselves, folks. All right, let's move on. Sorry.
One man, one woman, one child, one vote. They didn't believe that. So, that's not how the country was founded. That's not how the system was set up. And that was for a reason. So I think it was a big mistake in the past 100 years to just open it up to everybody. We have to think about how we're going to have competent government and who's going to make those choices. And, we have to think competent people should be making those choices.
If I were to ask you,
Competent
let's start
people.
with rights. Okay, let's start
Fuck
with
outta here.
access to something very simple. Let's go to an amendment. Let's go to 19th Amendment. Right? Let's start there. Let's just start there.
Gone.
All right.
Gone.
All right.
Day
What do you
one.
thought? All right. Day one. Day one. Go.
The 19th Amendment, of course, is the amendment that gave women the right to vote. So there you go, right there, folks. Doesn't want women to vote, you know, doesn't want women to have any rights whatsoever, wants women to be basically treated like property in like, like they do in Afghanistan, you know. Um, I bet the reason why he really wants that, if you want my honest opinion, is probably because he wants, if it was like that in our society, then he'd be married already, because he'd be like, someone would have arranged his marriage for him, right? That's probably what it is, and that's a thing that I actually do see that a lot in incel circles. Like they're pissed at that kind of thing that we don't have that because it's comes down to he doesn't want women to vote basically because women don't want to fuck him, you know. And he's blaming the fact that women find him repulsive on the idea that they have too many rights. That's what it is. It's the most ridiculous fucking thing. It's so just childish. Zero self-reflection, right? Here's the thing, if you don't, because I have a lot of sympathy for guys out there that, have trouble meeting women, right? Because I was one of them. All right, I'm going to say it right now. I was one of them. I'm actually married now. But, I understand how it is. I'm overweight, have been for my entire life. You know, women don't really like fat guys. That's just how it goes. And then it's funny because since I got married and stuff, my wife has kind of shown me how to lose weight, right? So I am now under 200 pounds, for the first time in my adult life ever. As of this morning, 197 as of this morning, which is like, you know, and I'm still probably what, uh, 30 pounds overweight. I should weigh for my height. I should weigh about 160 something. So, but when I met my wife, I was 230. You know what I mean? And it's like, I never knew. You don't know how to do these things if no one ever teaches you how to do it. I would go and I would work out and stuff like that and never lose any weight and always wonder like why. And it's because I was eating like fucking, you know, 3,500 calories a day and shit. Right? And I didn't understand that because they don't teach you this stuff in school. They don't teach you that, you're not to you think you eat things that you think are healthy, but they're really not because the calories are just off the fucking scale. That was my problem, right? So now I understand. It's like, oh, I have to actually like cut down on things like carbs and shit like that. But I understand. My point is that I understand that it's not easy, and I would go out with girls and it would be cool and then just nothing would ever happen. And I'd be like, what the hell? You know. And it's because let's face it, folks, you know, the first thing that attracts someone to you is physical attractiveness. That's definitely true. But there's other factors involved. It's not like I never had a girlfriend before, right? It's not like I wasn't like a fucking, I met my wife when I was 35, right? It's not like I was a 35-year-old like, incel who would just never like like, you know what I mean? It's like, no, I have plenty of girlfriends and stuff like that in the past, but I understand it's not. I understand that it's not easy to just. Some guys have it. Some guys have that ability that they're just like naturally attractive and they have that charisma. And I had a friend named David who's like that. My friend David is just like naturally. And the thing about my friend David is that he's not some super like fucking model Adonis kind of guy either. He's like big and bald and he's got a big belly and stuff like that too, but he's just one of those guys that can just basically like, you know, seduce any woman that he lays his eyes on. Right? And some guys just have that charisma, and I never had that charisma. So I understand how that goes. You know what I mean? But, at the same time it's like there's more to it than just how you look. You know what I mean? There's your attitude. There's the way that you treat people. Okay, this is getting all fucked up. I think we need to not. I think I have too much shit going, and that's why when I try to blend things, it gets all fucked up here. So we're just not going to blend stuff. Well, maybe I'll work on this a little bit. You know, um, I understand that there's other things involved besides just the way you look. It's the way you treat people. It's the things you do, the actions you undertake, your attitude, whether you have respect for people, stuff like that. And basically, essentially, if you're a good person, then good people will, you know, gravitate towards you. That's essentially how it works, basically. And if you're like a piece of shit, then that's like a major fucking turnoff. And imagine you were a woman and you went on a date with Nick Fuentes. And after 5 minutes of talking to this guy, there would be so many red flags that you'd be like making the first excuse you could to like go to the bathroom and jump out the fucking window and like escape this like Nazi like basically like this fucking white supremacist like Nazi fucking misogynist like bridge troll. That's who this guy is. I mean, fuck. He doesn't even want them to be able to vote, for crying out loud. Like that was a question that we settled 100 fucking years ago. You know, would you date someone who thought that you weren't allowed to have agency? That's what that means. That not being able to vote basically means that you don't have agency, that other people get to make decisions for you. Would you date somebody like that? Like, probably not. So, anyway, let's move
God.
on.
It shouldn't be there. It
I have a
shouldn't be
question though. Have you ever lived in any other country besides the United States?
there. Nope.
Okay,
Just
so
America.
when you talk about many of these things, these are just from an observational standpoint where you've done a lot of reading and observed a bunch of things,
Yes.
and then arrived at your conclusions based on that.
Yes.
But you have no practical experience living under, say, a more authoritarian rule.
No, well, I mean, I already live under something like authoritarianism in America. I'm on a no-fly list. I'm being persecuted. The thing is about authoritarianism is it can't be
He's being persecuted because he's on the no-fly list. Gee, here's the thing about that, folks, right? When the no-fly list first came out, when they first created the no-fly list, it was in reaction to 9/11. People like Nick Fuentes were applauding that back then, right? People like me, we were the ones that said, hey, this is bad news. You know, the progressive left were the only people back in the Back in the early aughts, up until all through the Bush administration, we were the only people who were sounding the alarm that civil liberties were on, shit, that didn't work. You know what I need to do? I need to restart this. So that's okay. We're just going to save this, and then we're going to close that, and then we're going to restart Photoshop. Right. But people like me were the ones who were, sounding the alarm about civil liberties, right? And people like Nick Fuentes were just like, you know, all over that, totally fucking happy to take away the rights of, people as long as they were Islamic, right? As long as they were Muslims, they were perfectly happy to restrict immigration from Muslims, for example. They were perfectly happy to keep them from flying on airplanes. They were perfectly happy to do all of that stuff, right? Stop immigration from them, that kind of thing. Like stop them from like, you know, um, to put bans on people coming there from their countries, right? All fucking totally happy to do shit like that, to drop bombs on people in the Middle East and all that. Some of those restrictions now are being applied towards them. Suddenly they don't like it anymore. Oh, it's oppression. Yeah, it was great when it was like, brown people that I think are parasites. But no, when it gets applied to me because I do shit, because people like me do things like invade the fucking Capitol, right? There we go. See, now it's blending a lot better. Then all of a sudden it's oppression. It's like, get the fuck out of here, man. And I know that, Nick Fuentes himself personally was like only 4 years old and shit, when 9/11 happened. So he has no idea what the fuck's actually going on or what things were like back then, or has no perspective on the greater history of what's happened over the last 20 years. So I don't blame him for being a moron there. Or, well, I guess I don't blame him for being ignorant of that. But the internet exists for a reason, you fucking idiot. Like, look this shit up, right? If your life is going to be about, if your career is going to be about politics, maybe it might be a good idea to learn a little bit about politics, right? Before you like run your mouth and say a bunch of racist shit and come off like a goddamn moron. Anyway, moving on. You're not, basically, long story short, you're not fucking oppressed, Nick Fuentes. You're just an asshole.
Be condemned in itself, because the character of the regime isn't really authority. The authority is colored by the
Hold on.
people that are in authority.
Not to interrupt you, sorry, but just to back up for a second. So you're currently on a no-fly list based on the authoritarianism that's going on in the country.
Right.
Now, that authoritarianism, you
bullshit.
could argue, is from the left, and the left are very happy that they have that authoritarianism. So what you
Yeah, that policy was put in by the Bush administration. It was put in by right wingers. So I don't want to hear no bullshit about how the left is oppressing people by putting, right wing terrorists and provocateurs on the no fly list. Maybe you ought to like think about that the next time you fucking next time a Republican, takes some fucking like steps to limit civil liberties. Maybe you ought to think about that before you like, support his ass. Maybe you ought to think like, hey, one day this can be applied towards me. So don't give me this fucking horseshit that it's like, oh, this is the left wing fucking authority. Get the fuck out of here. You know, it's like, yeah, man, let's not forget who actually started all this shit. Let's not forget who created Guantanamo Bay, right? Who passed the fucking Patriot Act, Like these things didn't have to happen. Okay. That was, nobody said, hey, we had to like start taking away people's civil liberties and stuff. Nobody said we had to put those like naked airport scanners in the fucking airports and like, anybody remember free speech zones? You remember that? They made that a thing back in the past where it's like, oh, you can protest here, but you have to do it over in this designated free speech zone. Remember that stuff? Was it the Democrats that did this, right? Was it Bill Clinton that did this? Was it Barack Obama that did this, right? No. Okay. So every fucking time we have like, you know, march towards authoritarianism, it always comes from the right wing. Every time. Every single fucking time, right? And then they'll do shit like, oh, well, these vaccine mandates, that's authoritarianism. No, it fucking isn't. All right. The vaccine mandates are not authoritarian. They've been a thing for literally like, centuries at this point. We've had things like, forced vaccine mandates. That's complete and total fucking bullshit. So it just it just blows me away how like, you know, they just turn around and blame everything that the people they support do on their enemies. And no one ever brings that shit up, right? No one here will ever mention that, because it's just a given to them. It's like, oh, this is obviously left-wing authoritarianism. It's like, the fuck out of my face, you fucking morons.
You want is right-wing authoritarianism.
Yes.
But your issue is with left-wing authoritarianism.
The problem is not authoritarianism.
So
the
what-
problem
Wait.
is leftism.
What about the people?
Oh, okay. See, he's mask off about it. He doesn't give a shit. He just straight out says, yeah, I want authoritarianism. That's what they just said. I want authoritarianism. I just don't want left-wing authoritarianism. So he just wants him to be in charge. He just wants himself to be in charge. Oh, well, at least he's not a hypocrite about it. I can give him that. I can say, hey, at least he's totally being honest with people and saying, like, yeah, I'll take away your rights. Right? That's what he's basically saying. Yeah, I'll take away your rights. Yeah, I'll enforce my will on you and force you to live the way I want you to live. Yeah, I'll do things like take away your reproductive rights and your right to vote and your right to free assembly and your right to free speech. That's another one. Do you really think that Nick Fuentes gives a shit about free speech? Fuck no. He doesn't fucking care about free speech. Hell no. All right. He'll take it away the nanosecond he gets. If they were to make Nick Fuentes the emperor of the world, that the nanosecond he gets in power, he's taking that shit away. He doesn't care. He straight said it right there. Doesn't give a fuck, right? Because he wants to be the one to impose his will on everybody else, right? At least he's being honest about that. A lot of these other fucking right-wing fuckwits would like try to hide that. You'll never hear Tucker Carlson saying that. You'll never hear Sean Hannity saying something like that, right? You'll never hear Joe fucking Watson, whatever the fuck that guy's name is, the dude with the three fucking names. Anybody with three names, by the way, is like, you shouldn't trust them. Right? It's like, God damn it, choose a fucking name, you idiot. Anyway, you know, it's like, you'll never hear those guys say it because they always try to like hide their shit under like, some some semblance of like, oh, well, I still believe in democracy and all that. Well, Nick Fuentes just doesn't give a fuck about democracy. And it's like, well, there you go. He's honest about it. So we should be honest to him, and all of us in the entire country collectively give his ass the middle finger and do everything that we possibly fucking can to prevent someone like him from ever getting into power ever. Because fuck that. What kind of country do you want to live in? Where some like snot-nosed little fucking racist douchebag gets to tell you what to do and you don't have a choice? What's going to happen if you don't go along with Nick Fuentes' fucking like, authoritarian government? What's he going to do? Right? Is he going to respect your rights there and be like, oh, well, you don't like it, you can do it? No. No, he's going to throw you in jail and he's going to kill you. That's what he'll do. Right? And I don't even think he would like lie about that. I think if they were to ask him that question, he would straight out say, yes, I would use state power to crush people that don't agree with me. I mean, holy fuck, at least he's being honest. I guess I have to say that about him.
People on the left who think of you and go, well, I don't want to live under his rule of law. Because obviously there are people who don't think like you do.
This is
We're
the
not a
essence
monolith.
of politics. This is the essence of politics, is that there is an us and there is a them. There
Sure.
are right-wing people and there are left-wing people, and people have varying identities with different levels of salience. But yes, the problem is that we are not in control of the regime. Ultimately, the problem is.
Yep. There you go. The problem is we're not in control. We need to be in control. It's refreshing to see someone who's so open about his douchebaggery like this. It's also kind of disturbing that people, open fascists, are like, cavorting with this guy, right? Because this dude, it's not like he's still, I guess you would call him fringe, but there are politicians and shit that are courting this fucking dude. What's his name? Paul Gosar? You know, is like going to like talks for America First and stuff like that, trying to court these people. Trying to court his followers, trying to get them to vote for him, shit like that. When you have like the mainstream Republican Party playing footsie with people like this, with open fascists, open white supremacists, that's scary shit, you know. So yeah, if you think that like Nick Fuentes is just like he's just some fringe internet moron that you can ignore, don't ignore him. No, he should not be ignored. Okay, this right here, I don't know why this isn't like on the front page of like every fucking news. I mean, seriously, like, why is this not being reported on? You know, that I mean, god damn it, the best disinfectant for parasites like Nick Fuentes is sunlight. Get it out there. You know what I mean? Like, there's some people on the left who say things like they criticize people for platforming. You know, like like for example, I don't know, Vosh. You guys ever watch Vosh? A lot of people don't like Vosh because of certain things that he said. But one thing that people do criticize Vosh for is that he openly debates people like this. He'll have white supremacists and shit on his fucking, stream, and he'll debate them. And some people on the left will say things like, well, when you do that, you're platforming white supremacy, right? I believe in that to a point. I think at some point it actually is beneficial to get these people out there and let them kind of say their thing because it exposes what they actually mean. You know what I mean? Like, if the only way that you heard of Nick Fuentes was from like internet videos and shit like that, you wouldn't really gather that he wants to take away your right to vote. You wouldn't really gather that he thinks women should be property, or that you know poor people shouldn't be allowed to vote, or that he's a straight up fucking mask off authoritarianism that would use the you know use all of the abilities of the state to crush people that disagreed with him, right? You wouldn't get that from him. You would think that he was just like, if you just watched his like prepared speeches and shit like that, you think that oh, he's just some conservative guy that wants to like, ban abortion or something. And like maybe he's in support of gun rights or whatever. That kind of thing. You wouldn't be getting this mask off shit from it. And it's like, it's better, I think, let the man speak in his own words. This is his own words. Nobody's editing this. This is not being censored or edited, or the mainstream media is not like taking his words out of context here. Okay, let's listen to what he has to fucking say. I mean, so I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's good once in a while to kind of like put these cockroaches out in the fucking light so people can like basically sniff their bullshit and understand who they fucking really are. Right? So, moving on here.
Is not the regime itself or power, because the thing is, and this is the problem, is that conservatives are sort of naive about power. Power, is not, we're not getting rid of it anytime soon. This idea of like, take over the government to let everybody go and free the people. It's like there will always be concentrated central.
Yeah, no conservative actually believes that. Take over the government to free the people and let everybody go. That is not, there are zero, that's not a thing. No mainstream conservative. That's, why is all this stuff, for example, in Georgia happening with voting rights? Is it so that they can free people? No, no. It's so that they can impose their will on people. Why is all this shit happening right now with this move to overturn Roe versus Wade right now? All of these different states are putting up laws and stuff because they want them specifically to get challenged by the Supreme Court because they have a conservative majority in the court now, right? Is it so that they can free people from government tyranny, or is it so that they can impose their will on everybody else and force them to not get abortions, right? To force them to have children that they didn't plan for and that they don't want and can't afford sometimes, right? It's funny because usually the alt right is usually kind of in support of abortion rights because non-white people get abortions. They're usually kind of cool with that. So I think that's going to go bad. Just as a kind of a side tangent here, I think that when because I think it's going to happen and the Supreme Court is gonna basically fucking overturn Roe v. Wade probably within the next week or so. And when that actually happens, I think it's going to be a backlash that's going to fuck, Republicans up and drive people to vote. That's going to be one of those things like, hey, they took away abortion, right? That's going to be a motivating, there's no way to motivate people more than taking away something they like. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But this idea, though, that, yeah, conservatives want to free people and reduce like tyranny or whatever, and that's why they're like doing all this like voter suppression shit. Get the fuck out of my face with that. That's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard. Like, I don't know, kind of par for the course for Nick Fuentes here. Jesus, we're only 7 minutes in, and I'm already like at an hour and a half. Sorry, guys. I'm interrupting too much here.
Power, and the question is, well, who's going to wield it? Are we going to forfeit the playing field to the left? This is essentially what conservatives have done because they're averse to rule. Like when conservatives get in control of Congress or the presidency, what do? Do they go aggressively like the left does and wield the bureaucracy and wield the Congress? Or do they kind of just, well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this and that. And then the left comes in with a vengeance and they say, we're going to use environmental regulations to take your gun rights. And we're going to use the IRS to go after conservative nonprofits. And we're going to do this and we're going to solidify our rule. And then we are going to set the tone for the country. And conservatives then.
So what he's describing right there is the fact that conservatives don't have solutions. That's what he just said. Hey, they don't do anything, right? Because that's what happened. What he just described is what happened during the Trump years. Trump comes in, he has all these fucking ideas and things that he's talked about, blah, 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 shit he's going to do. Doesn't do any of it. Didn't do anything when it came to healthcare, kept promising that there was going to be a healthcare bill. Never happened, right? Didn't really do anything when it came to, immigration. Not really. We're going to build a wall, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But, we're going to deport people. But they did, but he actually promised that there would be like, lasting immigration reform. That didn't happen. He just basically like focused on deporting people and shit like that, right? He said that they were going to pay off the national debt. That didn't happen, right? It's because it was all bullshit. Because conservatives don't actually have solutions. Because they're not actually interested in governing. They're only really interested in using the government to make money for themselves. That's really it. Giving out government contracts, stuff like that, and cutting taxes. And that's the one thing that actually got passed during the Trump years was cutting taxes. You notice that after the tax cuts happened, that was it. You remember Rex Tillerson, who was Donald Trump's Secretary of State, hung around just long enough to get taxes cut, and then he bailed. And after that happened, and then there was also he was trying to get an oil deal in Russia, and when the oil deal fell apart, and then Trump got his taxes cut, he left because that's all he was there for. He didn't actually give a shit about anything else. And this is, so what Fuentes is describing is the idea, the fact that conservatives, that Republicans do not have any solutions. And he thinks it's because they're wimpy, but I don't know, kind of looks like the evidence kind of says it's because they don't actually give a fuck about actually governing. The Democrats actually do have ideas because, the Democrat, and he's right about that too. The Democrats come in and they try to do a bunch of shit. They never actually get any of it done. But, they want to do things to make life better because people like AOC and Bernie Sanders and, etc. actually give a shit about people. That's the reason why they're in government, is to help people and not enrich themselves. It doesn't surprise me that Nick Fuentes doesn't understand this because he sees the government as a tool for power, right? That's all he sees it for. He sees it as a tool for power to enforce his will on people and not not an institution which is supposed to actually help people and protect the country and improve the quality of life for people. That's what the government actually is really supposed to be there for, right? Is to ensure that we live in a just and fair society and promote the general welfare. It's right there in the Constitution. Nick Fuentes doesn't give a shit about the general welfare. He gives a shit about Nick Fuentes' welfare and his ability to tell you what to do. So, once again, he's right for the wrong reasons.
Even like when Trump gets into office, it's like, what did we accomplish in the first 2 years? When we had Congress, we had the courts, we had the White House,
Yep,
we did a corporate tax cut,
it's because they
barely
didn't give a
repealed
shit.
Obamacare. That's about it. We should have built a wall. We should have went after the endowments.
They did not repeal Obamacare, by the way. The ACA is still very much a thing. They couldn't get that done. I don't know if you guys remember, Trump kept saying, oh, yeah, we'll have a health care plan. It's coming in 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and then fucking it never happened. So, yeah, he's complaining about, he's actually, the thing he's complaining about is actually true. It's just because, you know, like I said, he thinks the government is there to be a tool for people to, enforce their will on people because he's a fucking authoritarian. That's what it is. He's an authoritarian. He's not using the government to help people. He's using the government to help himself. That's the difference. So, but hey, at least he's honest about it, right?
For the universities, we should have targeted left-wing institutions. We should have opened up the libel laws and went after the media. So, conservatives just aren't playing the game.
Yeah. See, what did he just say? Let's listen to that again.
Well, we're going to cut your taxes and we're going to do this and that. And then the left comes in with a vengeance and they say, we're going to use environmental regulations to take your gun rights. And we're going to use the IRS to go after, conservative nonprofits. And we're going to do this and we're going to solidify our rule. And then we are going to set the tone for the country. And conservatives then, even like when Trump gets into office, it's like, what did we accomplish in the first 2 years? When we had Congress, we had the courts, we had the White House, we did a corporate tax cut, barely repealed Obamacare. That's about it. We should have built a wall. We should have went after the endowments for the universities. We should have targeted left-wing institutions. We should have opened up the libel laws. And
we should have targeted left-wing institutions. See, there you go. We should have gone after the endowment for the arts. Get rid of artists. Get rid of universities. Get rid of left-wing institutions, right? Because the government's just a tool for him. There you go. Mask off fascist, folks. This is what he's describing is fascism. That's what it is. Absolute fascism. So anybody out there who's trying to defend Nick Fuentes and say that he's not an authoritarian fascist who would not, use the government for his own personal aims, this is his own fucking words. His own words.
Went after the media. So conservatives just aren't playing the game. We've got to wake up to the reality of power politics, engage and play. And so back to the original point, the problem is not that there is power, that there is authority. There will always be authority. There has to be authority. The question is who is going to wield it. And, right-wing people have to do that, which is why I said earlier, if Trump became like, the Caesar of America, hypothetically, if he had got in 2016 and said, you know what, I'm not leaving. And the courts tell me that I have to leave, well, I'll disobey them. And he went full, Andrew Jackson, I would support it. I wouldn't say...
Oh my God. Trump as Emperor of America, he would support it. Sadly, he's not the only one. And, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And that's the other thing that really gets me, though. It's like, of all the fucking, wannabe Napoleons, wannabe Hitlers or whatever out there that these guys could choose, why Donald Trump? Like, I don't get that part. That's the thing. I mean, I understand that Nick Fuentes doesn't, give a shit about people and doesn't know what government is actually for and wants to impose his will on people because he's a fucking, scared little child who doesn't understand how the world works and can't handle the fact that other people out there don't like the things that he likes. And then plus there are people who aren't white. I understand all that. What I don't understand is why Donald Trump? Why Donald Trump? Donald Trump is if you can't tell Donald Trump is a fucking bullshit artist after 5 seconds of listening to him, then you have a problem, I mean, just look into Donald Trump. Anybody out there, if because I do occasionally get Trump supporters in my chat and making lots of because I make videos about the alt right and shit like that. So I do get like Trump supporters that come in and talk to me and stuff like that. Right. I really want to know this. Why Donald Trump? You know, what has he possibly done in his life? I mean, he was president for 4 years, and what Fuentes just said, hey, he didn't do shit. So why would you want to make him president forever if he's not going to do anything? Right? He doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't care about anything. He's just there to personally enrich himself. And besides the fact that he's like the most vile fucking human being that you can think of, every sign of everything that we know about him points to the fact that he's a narcissistic asshole who would sell his own grandmother for a donut if he wanted to, right? Like, that's what Donald Trump is. Yet these fucking people are ready to, like, destroy democracy in order to support him. Why? Because it pisses off the libs. That's why. That's the only thing that I can think of, right? Because Donald Trump says shit that pisses people like me off, and then it makes them feel good to piss off liberals. That's really the only reason. I mean, unless somebody else has another reason that you can tell me, please let me know. But I think that's the fucking reason, and that really is the dumbest fucking reason. It's like that is the stupidest fucking reason to support somebody ever. He's not going to do anything for me. He's going to objectively make the world worse. He's going to fuck everything up. He's going to destroy our standing in the country. He's not going to do shit about a pandemic. He's like, going to start a fucking like 4-year trade war with China and cost people, their jobs and their livelihoods and shit like that. But he triggers the libs. So that's why I'm voting for him. If that's you, if I just described you, you're a goddamn moron. Right? If that's what you believe, if you're one of these people, if that's why you support Donald Trump, you're a fucking idiot. All right? You're dipshit. And hey, under Nick Fuentes's model of democracy, you wouldn't get the right to vote because you're too fucking stupid. That's the other thing, right? If he really wanted to put in like intelligence tests and shit in order to like, control voting, then all of Trump's base would fail those tests, and I guess Donald Trump wouldn't get elected. Maybe we should do it. Maybe we should put it in to keep people like Donald Trump from being elected. Maybe we should put in an IQ test. Say, hey, nope, you're too stupid. You can't vote. Hey, man, we didn't want this. We're just doing what Nick fucking Fuentes said. Let's do it. No Republican would ever get elected ever again. Anyway, moving on.
This is authoritarianism. This is in principle wrong. I would say this is a right man for the job. This is a rightful ruler of America. And, and I would be okay with that.
You bring up Caesar, but didn't that end pretty poorly for them?
No, the empire.
The empire ended pretty poorly, I think.
Yeah, after hundreds of years.
Well, we've been around for about 400.
Yeah.
How many we got left?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's just it. The Roman Republic was around, and then it gave
The country 200 years, not 400 years, number one. Number two, yes, his co-host there is correct. But authoritarian regimes tend to not end well for the people who are in authority. Right. They usually end in a fiery mess where everyone in charge gets murdered. That's usually what ends up happening. It's only been in very recent times that authoritarian regimes have ended, like, for example, in South America and stuff like that, where the actual dictator is allowed to go grow old and die. Usually there's some kind of revolution because people don't like it when you take away their rights. They don't like being told what to do. People don't like it when the guy that's running everything is doing it for his own personal enrichment. Because that's all authoritarian regimes actually are, Putin is one of the richest men on earth. Right. Putin might possibly be the richest man on earth because we don't actually know how much wealth Putin actually has because it's all hidden away. Stuff like that, right? The Saudi, the Saudi royal family billions upon billions and billions of dollars, right? You know, Gaddafi, billions and billions and billions of dollars, right? Fucking Kim Jong Il or whatever, right? Who even knows how much money? North Korea doesn't have a lot of money, but it's a good bet to say that a large amount of their wealth is controlled by Kim Jong Il. Wouldn't you say? It's because that's the reason why. When people want to become, dictators, that's the reason why. It's to steal wealth. Saddam Hussein. I remember a news story. This was actually on the Daily Show way back in the day. Saddam Hussein confiscated all of the gold in the country, right? Because of some economic bullshit reason. And then a few months later was in this parade with a fucking golden carriage. This was on the Daily Show. It's like, oh, well, where did all that gold go? Where did all the gold that you confiscated from the civilians actually end up? Oh, it ended up in fucking Saddam Hussein's pocket, right? So yeah, that's the other thing. It's like, no, don't think that Nick Fuentes wants to make the world, the country, like he wants the United States to devolve into a fucking authoritarian hellhole because it's better for the country, because the country ran better that way, because people were happier under these old Jim Crow laws. No, that has nothing to fucking do with it whatsoever, right? Has to do with imposing your will on people, and it has to do with stealing their money, right? Living high on the hog, living rich, and under a different set of laws where you get to do whatever you want, and everybody else is sort of like your fucking serf, your slave. Saddam Hussein's sons, Usay and Uday or whatever the fuck their names were, would go around and kidnap women and just basically fucking rape and torture them. And nobody could do shit because they're Saddam Hussein's sons, right? They were like, it was notorious for that back in the day. Like, Gaddafi would do the same thing. Gaddafi would kidnap women and like fucking beat and torture and rape them. And no recourse whatsoever. What are you going to do? He'll have you shot if you try anything. That's another definition of authoritarianism. One set of rules for the ruling class, another set of rules for everybody else, right? People don't like that. People tend to get angry when that kind of thing happens. And especially in a country like, the United States, which was kind of founded on the principles that no one is allowed to tell you what to do. There you go, folks. Right wingers always like to say shit like, hey, the Second Amendment exists to stop authoritarian rule, which I personally think is bullshit. But hey, I am in support of any Second Amendment activist who would stand up and stop somebody like Nick Fuentes from taking over the country. You have my 100% support. I'll hide you out in my basement when the Gestapo comes. We'll take them on together. So, moving on. Jake Lesba, thank you for joining. Anyway,
birth to a true empire ruled by a Caesar, and then they reach their zenith under the empire. So I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing in the world.
I just find it interesting though that you're promoting these ideas having not ever lived under them. I just find that that's such a it's odd to say let's paint the entire house blue when you've never.
Because he has no idea what they actually are.
Well, I mean, do I need to go to Russia to?
Yes, probably.
Why? I mean, why?
I mean, I'll give you an example. A very good friend of mine who I've known for.
The reason why, Nick, is that so you can experience it firsthand, so that you can see what life is actually like when society is set up like that. That's the reason why, because it's called empathy. And I know that's something that people like Nick Fuentes don't actually have. Nick Fuentes doesn't actually give a shit about other people. And he just said it himself in this interview. He's totally cool with authoritarianism as long as he's the one in charge. So if he wasn't in charge, he would hate authoritarianism, right? So what interest does he have to actually go to places like Russia or go to Iran, for example, right? Or go to Saudi Arabia or go to, North Korea, something like that. What interest does he have in actually going to these places and seeing how normal, ordinary people live? under these regimes, right? He doesn't care about that because he doesn't give a shit about normal, ordinary people, right? Because he's not planning on being an normal, ordinary person when the fascist revolution comes. He's planning on being the guy in charge, right? Which is bullshit. I can tell you right now, Nick Fuentes would be the guy that gets fucking stabbed in the night of the long knives, right? If Donald Trump were to, like, say, get elected and take over, you know, and plunge us into the Fourth Reich or whatever the fuck. You think Nick Fuentes is going to be, like, in charge? No, right? Some 23-year-old kid with a YouTube channel, you think they're going to make you, what, governor of fucking Oregon or something? Like, get the fuck out of here, right? It's a delusion, is what I'm trying to say. You know, it's a delusion. And so I'm happy that that'll actually never happen. But moving on.
For about 10 years, used to be very much like you, actually. And he, he's someone who used to really, really prop up authoritarianism. He used to, and he still believes this in part, that people do need to be governed to a large extent because people, left alone are morons. And that's not saying necessarily that I even disagree with. I think your average person is probably as dumb as a bag of rocks. However, he moved to Singapore, which you could argue is not the worst place in the world. Obviously, it's quite clean. People, follow the law. The crime rate is reasonably low. But after about 2 years of living in Singapore, where they knock on your door, and this has happened to him, where he got dobbed in by his neighbors for having water on his balcony, and they said it's causing a mosquito problem. Now we're at your house, prepared to fine you over mosquitoes. He said to me, I hate living in this country. I hate the authoritarianism here. I hate the way that things operate, because coming from Australia, he's an Aussie. He was like, I much prefer the way that we do things back home, or at least, the freedom that we have. And living in a country where that's staunched in some capacity was really, and is, and continues to be very bothersome and trying for him. And so I just find it interesting, though, that you've only ever lived in the United States. I just, you can only do so much reading before practical experience actually should take, some.
All right. None of this is going to resonate with Fuentes, by the way. I can tell you right now, he's just going to, like, kind of, oh shit, that was wrong. I screwed that up. None of this is going to actually resonate with this guy because he doesn't care about people. See, you have to actually care about other human beings besides yourself in order to, like, give a shit about how your ideas would affect them if they were ever put in practice. He doesn't actually give a shit about what other people want or think or do. He only really gives a shit about himself. So that's what I haven't actually watched this far. So let's see what he says.
Some sort of precedence. And I mean, I say the same thing about women too. I mean, I dare say, from my understanding of many of your viewpoints, you also promote, like, the way of interacting with women. And I go, have you been in a relationship with a woman?
No.
So how are you telling other people how to behave towards women when you yourself have...
What? No. Yeah, that was it. This was okay. I did see this clip on YouTube, so let's just rewind that again. So he just said he was never been in a relationship.
Some sort of precedence. And I mean, I say the same thing about women too. I mean, I dare say, from my understanding of many of your viewpoints, you also promote, like, the way of interacting with women. And I go, have you been in a relationship with a woman?
No.
So how are you telling other people how to behave towards women when you yourself have not had any actual physical, interaction with them in a romantic capacity, or in fact in any capacity where you uphold them in a way that treats them with respect? I mean, if you're out here arguing that women are basically half the value of, well, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, in fact, because that's not right. But if you are looking to some other regimes around the world that do think that women are half the value of a man, I have to question what kind of a person who's had no experience with women is in a position to basically promote these ideas.
Well, I'm having an experience with a woman right now, and I've had lots of experiences with women in my life, not romantic.
So she just straight called his ass out there. Okay, you have no experience with women. She basically just called him a virgin, right there. I don't know if you guys caught that, in a romantic capacity, right? And okay, and you can see through this interview, if you look at her face, she's getting progressively more and more pissed off at Nick Fuentes, at the dumb shit that he's saying. So kudos to this Sydney Watson person, even though she's kind of a vile person too, for, like, standing up to this fucking little troll. But let's rewind that a little bit, see what he says here.
Basically promote these ideas.
Well, I'm having an experience with a woman right now, and I've had lots of experiences with women in my life, not romantically per se, but I've talked to enough women. I've been in I've known enough women to know sort of what's going on. And I think any man who is observant enough, and honestly, like I said, we could go back to Great Geniuses. We could
Okay. You notice what he didn't say there? He didn't say that, he said, "Oh, I've never been in a relationship." He didn't say I've had girlfriends before, right? I think he's a virgin. I think Nick Fuentes is, I don't know, is he one of those guys that's like maybe he's holding it for marriage? That's a perfectly legit thing. If you don't want to get married for religious reasons because, you're waiting until you get married, or you don't want to have sex because you're waiting till you get married. Nothing wrong with that. I personally think that's kind of cool. That's you do what you want to do, man. This is a free country. But Nick Fuentes is not religious. I mean, seriously, what do you think? Is a Christian, right? No, he's a fascist for crying out loud. He doesn't give a fuck about religion, right? So, I mean, if that's the case, then if he's actually waiting until he gets married, then I got some news for you there, pal. You're going to be waiting a long time. You're going to be the 40-year-old virgin before you know it, because no woman is going to marry you when you don't want them to be able to vote, when you want them to stay home and like just cook and clean for you and do your fucking laundry like you just said. No woman's gonna go for that. You know what I mean? So yeah, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. And I am gonna come clean. I actually did see that clip before. That was, this was the clip that got me to want to do this thing here. And this is why I named the stream Nick Fuentes is a terrible person and an incel. So, not like this is just my first reaction to it. A lot of that other shit we watched I didn't see before. But yeah, man, that kind of explains a lot here. Explains that, he was just talking a little while ago about like not knowing how the world works. Oh, people that have minimum wage jobs don't know how the world works and all this other baloney, all this other fucking horse shit, right? And then he's like, "Oh, I've never been in a romantic relationship." Okay, okay. Now, the person here who doesn't know how the world actually works is Nick Fuentes. All right, the person here that, I mean, goddamn. Here's the thing about that, right? Like, I don't know. All right, let's continue here. Let's play it a little more.
could go back to people that have been in relationships. Like a perfect example is like the pickup artists. If you ever notice the pickup artists who have the most relationships with women and the most sex, what they say is that really with women, it's the same bag of tricks to seduce a woman or whatever. And
Oh
I
my
think that kind of
God.
tells you something about the nature of women, that, you go from woman to woman. And
Okay, pickup artists do not have the most sex, right? Pickup artists are scam artists, are what they are. Okay, that's bullshit. If anybody, like, please tell me that you don't actually believe in pickup artistry. Anybody out there? If you are, because, I do get alt-right people that come on my streams here. Please tell me that you don't actually believe when some guy makes a fucking YouTube video and says, you know, I've had like, sex with 7,000 women. Get the fuck out. Bullshit. That's bullshit, right? There are no cheat codes in order to get a woman to fall in love with you. That's complete, total fucking horseshit, right? Because a pickup line or a technique might work on one person doesn't mean it's going to work on every person. Like they say shit like, oh, say her name and touch her shoulder and all this other stuff. Some women might like that, other ones won't. You know what does actually work with women? Look good, not be an asshole, be interesting. Those are the three things in order to get, and here's the thing about it. It will not be 100%. You will never, ever, ever come up with, game that is so strong that every single woman you meet is going to want to fuck you. I mean, not unless you're like fucking, I don't know, Kanye West or something. You know what I mean? If you're like rich and famous or some shit, that's different. All right. But just, if you're just an ordinary guy, There is no magic cheat code. There is no fucking Konami code that will instantly get you laid. There are things, be interesting. That's the number one thing. Be interesting. Don't be a douchebag, right? Look good, you know, look good. Don't be an asshole. Don't be an alt-right fucking bridge troll that wants to take away people's right to vote and thinks that, you know what a big turnoff is, right? A big, huge turnoff to women is like thinking that they should stay home and serve you and shit all day and not have careers and not be allowed to vote and do everything that you fucking say and, devote their entire existence to you, right? That's a big fucking turnoff right there, you know? Is why would anybody go for that? I mean, gee, here's the thing: there probably are some women out there who are deranged enough who like think I'll be the dutiful Christian wife or whatever, and that's fine. But still, you'd think those women would want to vote. You'd think they'd want the option, like, hey, if I want to have a career, I can do it. That's what feminism is all about, really, is being able to have those options, right? Because women in the past didn't have those options. If you wanted to have a job, you weren't allowed. If you wanted to vote, you couldn't, right? That's the whole point. Doesn't mean that you have to actually like live a certain way or believe in anything. It's to think that hey, you have the ability to do what you want, your own agency. That's what feminism is all about. Feminism is all about agency, right? And that your sex or your gender should not preclude you from having agency. Nick Fuentes wants to take away your agency. You know, well, just some hint to you, Mr. Fuentes, no woman is going to want to suck your dick if you take away her agency. Right? This is why, you can't get a woman to like give you the time of day because you want to take away her agency. Let's move on.
And it's the same kind of like little tricks, little things you could say or whatever to kind of hack them and whatever. And
God.
I think that kind of says it all about their nature. So,
What does it say about, our
About
nature?
their nature.
well, it says that, they're not fully rational. I don't believe that, like men, they possess this sort of full rationality.
Jesus Christ, look at her face. Women are not rational. As he's on a TV show hosted by a woman who is just from this interview, I can confidently say that Sydney Watson here is 20 times smarter than Nick Fuentes. She's like 20 times like, oh my God. I can't tell if she's pissed or if she's like on the verge of laughing because he's so fucking stupid. Like, and he's like, oh yeah, women are not rational. As I'm on your fucking TV show, as I'm on a TV show of a successful woman, like, oh my God.
I think that
Rationality towards what specifically?
well,
Or just
rationality entirely,
generally?
sort of objective. Yeah, I don't think they're capable of that. I think that, a male has a real impersonal sense of rationality and reason. I think that a female sense
Why?
is far more personal, and that derives.
So there's why. Why are men more rational than women? Like, how? Someone explain that to me, please. Like, why should I believe that a man just what? Because you have a penis? What is it about? Your penis makes you act very irrationally. I know this as a person who has a penis. It has often overridden my rational brain and made me do very irrational things. Mainly under the idea that, under the guise of trying to get laid. So that is just objectively wrong what he just said there. Only men can think rationally. Like, I just love how like these MRN people and incels and shit like that. They all think that women are just sort of like machines. They think they're just sort of like these little automatons that are just incapable of agency and can't think. And you ever hear like, oh, all the women, all they want to do is fuck Chad or whatever. It's sort of like, yeah, like if you get a girlfriend or a wife or whatever, as soon as like another guy that comes around that has bigger biceps than you and like a deeper fucking bank account, comes along, that like the woman suddenly can't control herself. And her like biological imperative means that she must go and have sex with this guy. It's like it's the dumbest fucking shit. It's the stupidest shit that I've ever heard in my entire life. It's like, oh my god, it's the exact same thing as saying that men just think with their dicks. You know, if that pisses you off, are you an MRM person? If you're a men's rights kind of person, and you don't like that stereotype that men just think with their penises, well, that's what you're fucking saying about women here. You goddamn morons. Like, this is the dumbest fucking thing. This interview is like, my god, my god, this should be required viewing in grade schools, not grade schools, high schools. This they should make every like this should be part of like social studies. Like I think I would put an entire course just on this interview about how wrong it is and how bad this guy's fucking like ideas are and how horrible they would be if we actually like implemented them. If we actually codified Nick Fuentes's fucking like, you know, personal philosophy into law, how quickly like society would fucking collapse. Right? It's like, ugh, so fucking such a joke.
From the fact that women are made to bear children. Women are made with their wombs to bear children. And so I think their whole consciousness is based.
Okay, sorry, gotta stop it again. Women are not made to bear children. No one is made to do anything, right? Women evolved to have the capability to bear children, right? But first off, it takes two to tango. It's not like women just suddenly just have children, immaculate fucking conception or something. That doesn't really happen, right? So there's nobody made anyone to do anything, right? And just because you have the equipment doesn't mean you suddenly have to fucking do it, or that you have some like overriding biological imperative that forces you to fucking do it. There are millions and millions and millions of women out there who have no interest in having children because they have other shit going on. They have jobs, they have careers, right? They have lives outside of childbearing, and they're happy that way. And that doesn't make them any less women than anybody else. That doesn't ruin their social like value to society. Damn it, it's doing it again. It's you notice that it's not blending again. Oh well. Let's see. Let's just get away from the blend tool. I think what's going on here is that like there's some kind of memory problem that I got, so you notice how I have to like it takes a second. There's like a delay. That's okay. I did buy a new laptop. I need to set it up. Maybe we'll do a stream on it next week. It's got much more in the way of RAM and shit like that, and it should be a lot easier to do this. We'll set that up next time. Anyway, yeah. Okay, it's been 2 hours. We are only 13 minutes in. And my computer is starting to show problems, so maybe we should end this pretty soon. But I do want to read some of the comments here, because there are a lot of comments. So let me just go back to, let's get rid of this video here. Maybe we'll pick it up. Probably not next week. If we pick it up again, it might be, maybe in the middle of the week. But let's read some of the comments from you guys before we end this, Let's see. Got a lot of comments today. Wow. It's because Nick Fuentes is in the title, isn't it? So that's why a lot of people came. Let's see. Let's read some of the comments that we got. South Florida Groiper. Been infiltrating Nick's stuff, and apparently he's involved in penny trading. Not at all surprising coming from a guy like Nick. Oh, okay. So that's why you're, let's see. Groiper, yeah, because that's the name of his like group, the fucking Groiper Army or whatever. Yeah. Penny trading, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's cool. It is kind of risky, but all right. I actually do own a couple of penny stocks myself, so, let's see. Cody Chorus, thanks for joining. Lusa Hedgehog, hi. Justin KG, thank you for joining. Sounds like an intelligent guy, but not wise. Let's hear your views on the vid. Lamel King Fuentes making his heir. It just makes me think like, yeah, his heir, right? Like fucking you know what that made me think of when he said that? When he said, yeah, I need a male heir. Made me think of Game of Thrones, with like fucking King Joffrey and shit. Raph, I know you haven't watched Game of Thrones. You should watch it, but don't watch the last season. The last season sucks ass. First season is actually really good. Anyway, let's see. Justin KG, bro, most men want sons or just healthy children. Pause from time to time to avoid copyright. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I understand that. I mean, I actually wouldn't mind having a son because there's things you do with your son that you can't do with a daughter. You can go play baseball and shit like that, and you can roughhouse with your son, and that kind of thing. And yeah, I totally understand the desire to have you know a boy, right? Especially for the father, obviously. You want because, it's sort of like, yeah, you're passing on your fucking legacy and shit like that. But it's like the way he framed it as like, a male heir. Like it's just so fucking cringeworthy. It's like one step above like neckbeard kind of my lady sort of shit. You know what I mean? Like if Fuentes there was wearing like a trench coat and like a fucking, trilby or some shit with like a katana strapped to his back, then that would have fit that so much better. Full disclosure, I actually do have a trench coat and a katana. I don't wear hats though. See, here's the thing. I can say that because that used to be cool, believe it or not. Way back, I know that a lot of people now they're like, "Oh, all that neckbeard shit was never cool." Yes, it was. It was cool for about 6 months in 1993, right when I was in high school. It was cool to wear trench coats. It was cool to have samurai swords. And then it went away. So yes, I do have a samurai sword. Yes, I do have a trench coat, and I do occasionally wear the trench coat, but I don't wear hats. I don't have a beard. I used to have a beard. Anyway, moving on. I'm not afraid to admit these things about myself, folks. You got to be honest. You got to be honest with yourself. I'm a firm believer in not bullshitting about who you were and you know awkward phases in one's life. So let's see. What was that? Message redacted. Oh, okay. Sorry, dude. Um, let's see. Justin KG. Not really. Men can work more efficiently than women. Many factors to consider. In some kind of jobs, maybe. I mean, yeah, if you're talking about physical labor, sure, men can work more efficiently. I mean, chopping wood, breaking rocks, lifting heavy things off of one thing and putting it onto another. Yeah, that's fine. But there's no reason why a woman can't do, other types of work, especially work that includes, I don't know, using your brain. There's no reason why that. There's no reason like, a woman can't be in management of something or, work the floor at a fucking restaurant or factory or anything. There's no reason why there's really very few jobs out there that are specific to men, and those jobs mainly have to do with things that require lots of physical labor. You know, and I would even put in that category firefighters, right? For example, there was a big push a few years back to get female, like women firefighters, and a lot of feminists were saying the shit wasn't fair. I don't go for that. There's physical requirements to be a firefighter. You have to be able to lift a heavy 200-pound hose up a flight of stairs, shit like that. And any woman who can pass those requirements, you're in. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to do it. It has to do with those, and it just so happens that men are just usually bigger and have bigger muscles and shit. That's just fucking sexual dimorphism there. It's got nothing to do with any it's got no, and that's the thing. It's like if you can do it, then do it, right? Like me personally, I believe that women should be allowed in combat, for example, in the army. 100% good with that. I mean, why not? Why? And there's a stereotype that women are like um, nurturers and shit like that, and they'll hesitate to shoot somebody. No, they won't. Right? That's a bullshit stereotype. No, if you train a woman to be a soldier, she'll be a soldier the same way that a man will. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. As long as she passes the physical requirements to be a soldier, she should be allowed in combat. As far as I'm concerned, you know, I think maybe there shouldn't be mixed regimens. You know, you don't want to have like male female squads or regiments or whatever the fuck they are because you know why? Because there'll be lots of sex going on. That's why you don't want to do that. I think they should keep it segregated in that respect, but in combat, fuck it. Why not? You know, she can carry the gun, she can shoot somebody. She wants to do it. She should be allowed to do it. What's the problem with that? You know. Let's see. South Florida Groiper. Nick sees himself as a king deserving pampering from his lessers. Yeah. Justin KG, bro, you're going extreme, obviously, but his mom did the house duties while his dad worked. Uh, Very normal in America for the last 200 years. Yeah, that's the thing about that, right? Like, I went on Reddit once before they banned all the incel forums, and I asked people in one of those forums. I said, "Hey, what is the perfect woman to you?" Right? What would you like to see? You know, and the you know, like if you could choose, if you could create the perfect woman out of thin air and marry her, what would she be? And a big portion of the people who responded to me said it would be a woman who cooks and cleans and does nice things to me and has sex with me whenever I want, basically. Exactly what Nick Fuentes said. You know, that was essentially it. Woman who does all of the fucking housework, right? Runs the household, does all of the fucking shit, and will basically take off her panties and bang me when I just snap my fingers. That's what they fucking want. And that's like basically a maid, is what they're talking about. You know, they want a maid that they can have sex with. You know, that's not a partner. That's not a wife. Right. Your wife should be someone that you actually love, that you get along with, someone that you have things in common with, that someone that you could live with for the rest of your life and that you want to live with for the rest of your life because, you know, they're a great person who compliments you and you actually care about them, right? You want to live with them the rest of your life. Like Nick Fuentes doesn't want that. He wants a fucking servant. He wants his mother is what he wants, except someone, his mother that he can have sex with. That's what it is. Right. That's not what your fucking wife is. And if he, you know, if he gets married, he should not get married, really, because he'll just get divorced. Because it's not going to last long, you know. If he actually does manage to trick some poor women into actually fucking like, you know, settling down with him, it's going to end horribly because he's a goddamn child. Let's see. Justin KG, do you think women are happy in America or Afghanistan? I bet women in Afghan are happier than American women. That's bullshit. No, they're not. They're not by any objectable measure. I don't know if you've been keeping up what's going on in Afghanistan right now, but no, women who live in oppressive societies like that are not happier at all. That's 100% bullshit. You know, there's story after story after story of women escaping, you know, oppressive countries like that where they have no rights. You know, occasionally you would get something like that, like an American woman would marry someone from Iran, for example, and just describe the physical and mental abuse. You know, in Afghanistan, you're allowed to essentially just murder your wife if you want to. You know, you could beat the shit out of her anytime you feel like it. You could throw acid in her fucking face. You could just kill her, and all you have to do is claim that, hey, she cheated on me, and then just get one of your friends to, you know, go along with your story, and you get off 100% free like that. You know, that's no, there's nobody on earth who enjoys that. You know, there's no woman out there who would choose that over, like, let's say if you were to get a group of 100 women, say, where would you rather live? The United States, where you're free and you can have a job and you can go outside if you want and you get to choose who you marry, choose who you have sex with, and people are not allowed to beat the shit out of you or throw acid in your face whenever they feel like it, or Afghanistan, where you have to wear a trash bag all fucking day and, you know, all this bad shit could happen to you. 100% of those women would choose the United States, right? And I'm not saying this, I'm not like anti-Muslim here. I'm not saying this as a dig against Islam at all. No. There are other countries on earth where none of that shit happens. Indonesia, for example. Women are not forced to wear burqas in Indonesia. Indonesia is a Muslim country, right? You know, Iran. prior to the takeover. If you look at, there was on Reddit today, there was a picture of like Iran in 1973, which was like 5 years before the Islamic Revolution. And it's like, and you would think that if you were just looking at some ordinary picture from the United States or Europe, it was a woman just dressed normally. She had a mini skirt on, actually kind of attractive looking. You know, women had important jobs in Iran before the revolution, right? They were free to do what they wanted. They could dress however they wanted, right? They could dress sexy if they wanted to. They could wear bikinis at the beach if they felt like it, right? It's all about feminism is all about agency. It's all about being able to do the things you want to be able to do when you want to do it. If you want to stay home and be a traditional wife, do it. If you want to go out and like, have fun and wear sexy clothes, do it. If you want to go have a career, do it. If you want to have kids, stay home and do it. That's what feminism is about. It's not about forcing your will on anybody. It's about doing the things you want to do for you. You want to have children, do it. You want to not have children. You want to be able to abort your pregnancy, do it. Right? The thing is, that's shit that men already have. Men already have that agency, right? There's no law in the United States that tells you as a man what to do at all with your body anytime ever. Okay? No one is allowed to tell you in the United States, hey, you can't work this job because you're a man, right? You're not allowed to do this because you're a man. You're not allowed, you have to stay home and get and raise kids, and you're not allowed to work because you're a man, right? You're not allowed to wear these clothes at this place because you're a man. Oh, your fucking chest is too revealing because you're a man. Whatever. None of that shit happens to men in the United States, and that's what women. That's what feminism is equaling that out. So women have the exact same choices as men. That's what it is. So, goddamn, there's a lot of. There's no way that I can get through all these because I actually have to get going, guys. I have an appointment that I can't skip, and it's coming here within the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to have to leave, but I am going to come back on and read every single one of these comments. I do that with every stream. Every stream I come through, I read all the comments. So thank you guys so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And even if some of you people were part of Fuentes' thing, if you guys are part of the Groper Army, thank you for coming and joining me anyway. And, here's the thing. It's like, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm not here to say that, you're right, you're wrong, whatever. This is all about my opinion and what I think. And if you think what I think is bullshit, that's totally cool with me. Not, a problem with me. You can say whatever you want in my chat. I'm not going to censor anyone. The only thing I'll kick people for is physical threats of violence. That's it. That's the only thing you get kicked from my chat. So totally cool to have you all join. But before we get going, a couple of things I got to do. I have to do my e-begging now. Because this is, that's part of the thing in order to keep me from, going broke, right? So this is the e-begging portion of the stream, and feel free to jump out now if you don't want to listen to me promote my shit. But if you like what I do and you want to support the stream, I have an Etsy shop that you can join, and you can buy stuff from me if you feel like it. I will put this down in the chat here. This is the link to my Etsy shop. I sell prints, stuff like that. These are like usually Lovecraft type, print things. This is an actual very popular one. This is Azathoth from Lovecraft here. So yeah, if you like what I do and you want to give me money, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop. I also have a Patreon. So I actually do have a couple of people on my Patreon. So if you want to, give me a small amount of money every month, feel free to join me on Patreon. If you want to see more of my artwork, I have a DeviantArt website, and I'm currently looking into joining a couple other ones. So these are all things that we did on the stream. I did this one on the stream. This Smurfs versus Oompa Loompas, I did this on a stream too. So if you like what I do and you want to see more of my artwork, feel free to come check me out on DeviantArt here, and you can, download all that stuff if you want to, right? Generally very cool with all that. And I also have a webcomic, which I am slowly working on. Should be able to put up another one probably by the end of next week. Hawanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. It's got ninjas, it has explosions, it has people getting their heads chopped off, getting kicked in the face, stuff like that. So please check me out on all that stuff. I really appreciate it. Um, Thank you all for coming. Thank you, South Florida Groiper. Thank you for Cody Course. Lewis a Hedgehog, always great to see you. Justin KG, thank you for joining. Really appreciate that. What was that? Thank you. Really appreciate you for joining. Inshoma, great to see you there, Raf. Really appreciate that. And everybody else who joined, Hudson, I see another name. Dynacat loves me. Great to see you. Really appreciate it. And Jake Lesba, thank you for joining too. You guys are great. Nobody, thank you. Neko G, thank you for joining too. Really, really appreciate it, guys. And I will see you all next Saturday at 11 a.m. Same bat time, same bat channel. We will most likely be talking about alt-right recruitment tactics next week if I can get that together. So, adios, guys. Bye.